Hi, friends. It is week 8 of the college football season, and you have found your way back to the Carla and Crappy Show. I'm still Carla. I'm still here. And I'm the only member of our team who is apparently not still on fall break, as Crappy and AJ are getting some much-needed time with their families. As we mentioned last week on the show, this has been planned since the beginning of the season. So we're glad they're getting some well-deserved family time. But as we all know, there is no fall break in college football, and that might be the understatement of the century this week, but we'll get there. We'll get into that situation in not so happy valley in just a little bit here. But before we look back and look ahead, I promised you that we were going to have a special guest host this week. We delivered. I would like to introduce you to our guest co-host, and if he looks familiar to you, he's never been on the show before, but I've technically been on his show. I was on his show last year. If you remember the celebrity guest picker at Blue Raider Extra Point outside the Horseshoe on campus at MTSU in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, this guy, Dylan Simmons, was the host, and I am so thrilled to be able to co-host the show with you this week. Dylan, welcome to the Carla and Crappy Show. It's great to have you here.
It is great to be here. I tell you what, there's nothing better than talking college football, especially with somebody who knows the game, has been around it, understands what's going on in the world of college football. I know times have been hard for you recently, but you know what? We're going to power through together, and we're going to make it through. Even though it's not so happy valley, we're going to make this a happy show for you, I promise.
Well, I appreciate that. AJ had to cheer me up last week after the UCLA debacle, and of course, then this week everything went completely sideways. So we're going to work on that. But before we get into reviewing last week, just some background on you. You were the host of Blue Raider Extra Point last year. You've now graduated, which is awesome. So congratulations on that, first of all. So what is your role now with MTN? MTN is the sports wing of the broadcast unit that we have in the the Scott Borchetta College of Media and Entertainment.
Yes.
Slip of the tongue.
Yes.
So what is your role now with MTN Sports?
Yeah, I have a few different roles with MTN Sports now. The main role I think I've got is I'm a GTA for MTN Sports, so graduate teacher's assistant. I help out, give advice, but I still do the on-air thing every now and again. We actually just launched a student radio broadcast for the MTSU football games. Had our first game last week, MTSU versus Missouri State. Fortunately, the Blue Raiders lost, but it was still a fun broadcast. Had a great time out there, and we're going to have another game coming up October 29th against Jacksonville State, so we're looking forward to that. And I'm also staying busy with radio broadcast. I'm a part of the Rooster 101.5 in Shelbyville, and I call Shelbyville Central football games. So I'm still doing the on-air thing and having a good time doing it.
Awesome. Yeah, well, it's great to have you back on campus, and it's great to have you here tonight. So I guess, shall we dive into the mess that was week 7? I'm going to throw this to you first because I think everybody who listens to this show or watches this show regularly knows exactly where I am going on my look back for week 7. So I would like a neutral view. What did you see in week 7 that kind of caught your attention?
Well, as far as stuff that caught my attention, I think the thing that really stood out to me was the Indiana-Oregon game.
Yeah.
That game was a lot of fun, and it was kind of shocking to me. I know a lot of people have been talking about how legitimate is Indiana, and I myself asked that question because, you see what Indiana did last year, looked like a good team, looked like they could contend, but when they had to play, I guess, the quote-unquote real teams, Ohio State, Notre Dame, they got their doors blown off. So I think I think the question that I had was, can they level up against really good competition? What do you know? They go into Eugene, Autzen Stadium, which nobody wins at, and they just go out and beat Dan Lanning and Oregon, which I didn't know if that was possible. Ohio State couldn't do it last year, yet Indiana did it. And what shocked me is they did it relatively easily, and they didn't play a perfect game. Fernando Mendoza threw a pick 6. The offense had its moments where it kind of sputtered, but overall they dominated the pace of the game and kind of held Oregon in check. The Oregon offense really didn't do much. Dante Moore, Heisman contender, didn't do a whole lot. So I was shocked by how good Indiana looked, and I think it's fair to say now that they are a legit national championship contender.
I mean, We had Jake Rose on the show a couple weeks earlier. Jake Rose, friend of the family, also in the Middle Tennessee broadcast network, I guess you could say.
Yep.
And he is a diehard Hoosier. And so when we talked to him, I asked him the question, is Indiana as good as they were last year? And without hesitation, he responded, I think they're better.
Yeah.
And that was before the Oregon game. That was before all of, the more recent happenings that we have with Indiana. I think Jake's right. I think you're right. I think Indiana, as somebody who is a Big Ten fan in general, rooting for the conference, Crappy, you're not going to like to hear this, but you need to be worried about the Indiana game now. And like we talk about that every year, that like the Indiana game is always kind of like, do I get nervous about it? Same way with Iowa. I've got that problem this week. We'll talk about that in a bit.
Nope.
But like you worry about those kind of like Midwest teams, right? When you're kind of at the top of the Big Ten. Indiana is a legit contender, and now they hold the one up over Oregon to get to Indianapolis. Like that's huge. That's huge.
It's absolutely massive. And again, the thing with Indiana is when you look at the rest of their schedule, they don't play Ohio State this year. They don't play Michigan, as far as I know. So their path to get to Indianapolis is really, really clear. I mean, they're going to be favored in every game they've got moving forward. Unless something wild happens, they should be 12-0. And there should be no reason that they don't make that Big Ten championship game. I do want to say, I think the job that Curt Cignetti has done has been nothing short of unbelievable.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've seen a turnaround of a program this quick and this erratic. I mean, I'd have to think back. I mean, what Saban did with Alabama is kind of the closest thing I can think of. But to take a program from the doldrums like Indiana, because, credit where credit's due with Saban, he already had a decent foundation at Alabama, a program that had success. Indiana has been the doormat of the Big Ten for years, and Curt Cignetti, in less than 2 seasons, has taken them all the way to arguably being the number 1 team in the country. I mean, they got first place votes in the AP poll this last week. So, when we talk about Curt Cignetti's tenure at Indiana in, 10, 15 years' time, who knows what all he's going to accomplish. But to me, doing what he's doing at the school he's doing it at is nothing short of incredible. And I think when you look around the general scope of college football, you can at least throw out the argument that he may be the best coach in college football right now.
I think you have to make that case at this exact moment in time. I don't know if I can argue with you on that one. Because you're right that the turnaround has been remarkable. It's going to be really interesting to see. What I'm going to be very interested to see is how, because we're getting really close, friends. Welcome to the midpoint of the season. We are getting really close to playoff rankings.
Right.
And when we start getting playoff rankings, it's going to be really interesting to me to see how the committee handles Indiana. Because that was always the big knock last year, was that the playoff committee didn't really see a lot of viability in Indiana. Now you've got an Indiana team with a top 10 win at their place. Right? How does the playoff committee handle Indiana? That's going to be a really fascinating thing, because you've got that kind of log up at the top now with Ohio State, Miami, and Indiana. And how do you sort those 3 teams out? That's going to be fascinating to watch. I think we have another week before we get before we start getting playoff rankings. So at that point, as you all know, we switch over from the AP rankings to the college football playoff rankings, but we are not there yet. But that's going to be something really interesting to watch. Anything else that stood out, or?
Yeah, there was one more point I wanted to make, because if we're going to look ahead, and I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse here, but I'm thinking about Indiana's legitimacy.
Yeah.
Ohio State right now looks like the top team in college football from what I've seen. But if there's any team that's going to beat them, I think it could be Indiana, because the path we're heading on, it looks like it's going to be Indiana, Ohio State in Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship. So if that is the case, can Indiana beat Ohio State? That's a tough thing to say, but I think they've got the best shot of anybody I've seen right now. And I mean, I'm a Miami fan, and even I'm saying that, because when you go into Eugene, you win against Oregon, and you also blow out Illinois 63-10. That's kind of similar to what we're seeing Ohio State do. So, I think people are going to be cautious about that because, it's Indiana. And even though they're great, it's like, well, I'm thinking about their past reputation. We got to look past that, because this team, I think they've got as good a shot as anybody to not just beat Ohio State, but maybe win that Big Ten title.
Yeah, my only hesitation there is that Ohio State's defense is scary good.
Yeah, it
I
is.
mean, scary, scary good. They've got the best defensive unit in the country right now, and if they meet in Indianapolis, and the Big Ten fan in me now hopes for this, I want to see those two teams go head to head. I absolutely because when you get that big of a powerhouse matchup, it's not going to matter. They're both going to be in the playoff. That was the same route that I was in last year as a Penn State fan playing Oregon. Like, it didn't matter if we lost the Big Ten title game. Oh well, we're still in the playoff.
Right.
That's going to be that exact same situation if both those teams meet in Indianapolis. That's a heck of a football game.
I think it's going to be a battle for the 1 seed at the end of the day. I think whoever wins that game is going to be the 1 seed in the college football playoff. And of course, they're doing seeding differently this year, so it's not conference champions in the top 4. So that puts more priority on that 1 seed and probably gives Indiana an easier matchup, or Ohio State an easier matchup in the first round. But time will tell on that one.
Yeah, lots of things to pay attention to. Okay, elsewhere. It's been a long week. It's fall break. Yes. I don't know what's happening. Elsewhere, Red River did Red River things. AJ and I both were pretty solidified on. I mean, AJ originally picked Texas, then he went and looked at stats and went, nope, Oklahoma all the way, and then we get Red Rivering, making Elmer Fudd proud, and Texas, and is Arch turning into the quarterback that we think he was supposed to be? Mateer's playing wounded, and we knew that, and it looked that way. I mean, he just didn't look like himself. But you gotta love those rivalry games, and nothing ever makes sense in Red River. And again, in the 2025 edition, it didn't make sense because that was a game Oklahoma should have won.
Yeah, it didn't make a lick of sense to me, because Oklahoma's looked dominant all season. Mateer's back. You think, okay, John Mateer's back, Heisman contender. He's been playing great all season long. And Texas is coming off a loss to Florida, which, I mean, I'm biased against Florida, but they hadn't looked that impressive this season. So for Red River to happen the way that it happened, I think it's a testament to what Sark was able to do in the week between Florida and Oklahoma to get this team motivated, focused, whatever the case may be. Arch didn't have to be like spectacular in this game, and I think that helped. Right. I think Arch may have been trying to force things a little bit beforehand, whereas in this game, he kind of just got to, play naturally and let the game come to him a little bit. Yeah. I'm sure Sark worked with him on that. But the thing that impressed me was the Texas defense, which had been getting gashed in certain games. I mean, we saw what Florida did to them. So for them to come back and just completely stifle Mateer, stifle Oklahoma, Mateer got picked off 3 times. The Oklahoma running game was basically non-existent. It was really impressive. I'm not ready to say Texas is a full-on playoff contender again because it's just one game and I got to see more. But what I will say is Texas has a pretty easy schedule, at least as far as the SEC goes moving forward. So the path is certainly there, especially if they win out.
And it's the exact opposite for Oklahoma. We've talked about this a number of times. Like their schedule is completely backloaded. Mm-hmm. Gosh, we might go from a top 10 Oklahoma team to an 8-4 Oklahoma team, depending on how Mateer responds, depending on how Venables gets those guys, regrouped after this, because they've got an absolutely brutal stretch. That's another kind of storyline to pay attention to in the SEC. Again, that's still weird. Oklahoma's in the SEC, friends.
I don't like it. I don't like it.
Welcome to college football. Okay, I guess I can't delay this any longer. Let's talk about Penn State. So I didn't watch the game. As somebody who is a diehard Penn State fan, have been my entire life. After the UCLA game, it's Saturday. Yeah, it's fall break for me too. I had family in from out of town. We were doing family things. To me, I was like, I've got other things I need to do today. I'm going to scoreboard watch this game. I'm scoreboard watching the game. I'm seeing Northwestern get back into the game after Penn State took an early lead. And then the next time I check my phone, after I'm watching Northwestern get back into it, I see that Northwestern has a 1-point lead. And then all of a sudden I see that it's Northwestern's ball with 1.5 minutes to play, and it's 1st and goal. And it's very clear that they're taking knees.
Yep.
And Crappy and AJ will back this up, because the thing that I did when I saw the end of that game was I picked up my phone and I texted them. And I said, The next push notification I get had better be that Penn State has fired James Franklin. And I said that without actually looking into it. And then we were watching some highlights later in the day, and I found out about the Drew Aller injury. And without understanding the context of the Drew Aller injury, I texted back to them and said, okay, hold on. I might be taking back everything that I just said. You can't discredit Franklin for a loss if you lost Drew Aller. At that point, I didn't understand that happened in the fourth quarter.
Right.
The next day, we get the notification that James Franklin has been fired. So I need to address two things here. The first thing I'll address is Drew Aller. Drew, that sucks, man. It absolutely sucks that is the way that your Penn State tenure will come to a close. You never like to see that. Despite everything going on around him, Drew Aller cared about that program. He cared enough to come back to try to go win that national title. I think he felt guilt after the way the Notre Dame game ended. He wasn't perfect. I mean, I've had my qualms with Aller for the last two seasons about the way he likes to telegraph his passes. And that's what lost them the Notre Dame game. That's what lost them the Oregon game. I mean, you can't stare down your receivers and expect to complete passes. That's just not the way that this works. But you still hate to see that for a player who has poured their heart and soul into this program for such a long time, to have their season end on what looked like just kind of a random tackle. It wasn't one of those like substantial kind of things. It was just kind of, there it goes.
Yeah.
So that sucks. Brings up something else that AJ actually brought up a few weeks ago, talking about Bo Pribula now being the starting quarterback at Missouri, and how, I guess it was just last week that AJ mentioned that might be a sign of the new coaching era, that if you have a backup quarterback who wants to see the field, you might actually have to think about giving him some playing time so that he doesn't transfer out. Because now Penn State is in the situation where you've got a redshirt freshman quarterback who has thrown exactly 13 passes, who will be your starting quarterback at a night game in Kinnick on Saturday with a team that is fully wounded. That's not a great situation.
No.
At this point, as a Penn State fan, you're just hoping to make it respectable at this point. The James Franklin thing. As a Penn State fan, you have a lot to thank James Franklin for. Bringing that program back from where it was, taking over from Bill O'Brien, and leading Penn State back to the national conversation for a good reason, which was something that school desperately needed. And the discourse that I have seen, there are a lot of people saying, well, we know James Franklin is a nice guy, and okay. Two things can be true at the same time, friends. James Franklin is a really nice guy. He cares about those players. He cares about that team. You can be a caring human being and also a somewhat ineffective football coach. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. Mm-hmm. And don't lose the plot, Penn State, because that's what happened here. James Franklin reached his ceiling at Penn State. And it's very similar, to use the Western Pennsylvania, because I know that's where most of you all are listening, to use the Western Pennsylvania analogy. Remember prior to this Steelers season, how everybody was saying we need to get rid of Mike Tomlin because he's been in the locker room for too long. It's stale. We need a fresh perspective. That conversation has all but fallen by the wayside because of the Steelers' newly found success this season. That same conversation applies here. It applies here. It's the same thing. If Tomlin had run into a brick wall this season and the Steelers were sitting at 2-4, which they very easily could be, we'd be having the same conversations about Mike Tomlin as we had about James Franklin, that we need to turn this over. I wish Coach Franklin all of the best. I really think he is a good football coach. I think his time at Penn State had just come to an end. You cannot look past the lack of top 10 wins. That to me, like, yes, these two losses back to back sucked. They were horrible. They were not good against not good football teams. But when it comes down to it, you add that on top of performance against top 10. What are you going to do? Other interesting things about this. Front office sports. So the buyout, right? That's starting to get a little bit like, there's some interesting things in this contract, friends. Penn State might actually not owe James Franklin all of his buyout because there is a clause in his contract that requires him to go find another job. And if he finds another job, Penn State only owes him the difference. So everybody talking about this is a big financial thing, like it's really not as big of a financial thing as you think, because another job also means a broadcast gig. And if I'm perfectly honest, I think that's what James Franklin wants for a couple of years. I think he's going to take the Dan Mullen route. I think you're going to see him on a desk for a couple of seasons before he actually gets back into it, so that he can kind of regroup a little bit. That's just my gut. I have no inside knowledge on that. What I do know is that the interim head coach at Penn State, Terry Smith, is actually a guy that I know. So Western Pennsylvania guys, you remember him. He was the head coach at Gateway when Gateway was running off all those WPIAL titles and state titles at AAA, or excuse me, at Quad A Gateway back when PIAA only had 4 divisions and not the 7 or whatever they have now. Terry Smith, cut from the same cloth as James Franklin, one of the nicest guys you will ever meet on the planet. If there's anybody to take over an interim in this situation, Terry Smith's not a terrible choice. It's going to be really interesting. Early reports are that the team is rallying around him. That's not surprising, having worked with him when I was covering high school football. I spent a long time in locker rooms with, well, outside of locker rooms because minors, outside of locker rooms with Terry Smith. He's the right guy to do this season. And I think I think this is, as much as you hate to see somebody else's demise be the rise of somebody else, I think that's a legit possibility here, that you're going to see some people start to pay attention to what Terry Smith is able to do for the rest of the season. Is he the long-term solution? No, I don't think so. I think he needs to go to a G5, get some head coaching experience at the collegiate level outside the high school level before he jumps into something big like Penn State. But I think you're going to see some smaller teams. UAB, hey, UAB, pay attention to what's happening here. Now, I don't know if Terry would move his family down to Alabama. That's a big move for a family, but UAB, pay attention to what Terry Smith does this year, because that would be a really interesting hire. Dylan, I've talked enough. What's your take on this situation? Was it the right call to fire him now? And who should Penn State go hire?
Oh, man, I feel like I just listened to a therapy session there. You had a lot of stuff you had to get out.
It's been a long week, friend.
I understand. And the thing with Penn State and James Franklin, I've been thinking about this a lot. I've listened to, Josh Pate, Joel Klatt, whoever's take on this whole situation. I look at it in a couple of ways, because with Penn State and James Franklin, he had brought them a lot of success. And I do think about, you mentioned where they were at originally before he got there. I remember back to when Penn State, was coming out of the Sandusky years, right. All the stuff in the early 2010s. Franklin comes in from Vanderbilt, and, say what you will, he got them in 2016, and I think it would have been his third year, right, to a Big Ten championship, got them to 11 wins, Rose Bowl berth, all of that. He put Penn State back on the map because, like I said, when I was young, I didn't think of Penn State as one of those teams. I just heard stories or whatnot about him.
Right.
With that said, and all the success he's had, constantly getting 10, 11, maybe even 12 wins in a season, I would almost forgive that. But like you mentioned, the record against top 10 teams is hard to look at and look past, because especially for a program like Penn State that's been so close to being on the cusp of a championship team, when you can't get it done against top flight opponents and it keeps happening, at some point you got to say enough's enough here. We got to make a change. And I think that it came to a head this season because this team was built. The 2025 Nittany Lions were built to compete and win a national championship.
Yep.
I think it was very similar, and this is just me speculating, but I think back to last year's Florida State team.
Absolutely.
I think what happened is that Penn State and Florida State both were looking to win a national championship, and the minute that they lost a game they expected to win, a huge game at the start or near the start of the season, I think it was kind of a mental checkout after that, because those guys did not come back to play in a quarterfinal or even a semifinal. They came back to win a national championship, and they came back to win the big games.
Yep.
So when you lose to Oregon in Happy Valley, in the whiteout in prime time, I think it kind of deflated the season. I think the players, may have lost some hope, and then they come out flat against UCLA. And UCLA comes in, scores a lot on offense, and then by the time Penn State wakes up, it's already too late. Then you're even more checked out for the Northwestern game, and we saw what happened. So it was a cascading effect, and I think Penn State did what they had to do. It's going to be hard for, some people to understand that, but I think it had to be done. Here's the thing, though, with Penn State that I do caution. Can you find somebody who's better than James Franklin? Because there's only so many coaches out there who have his resume and have his reputation. I've heard that the main candidate right now is Matt Rule. And to be honest, I don't know if Matt Rule's that much of an upgrade over James Franklin. That's just me kind of speaking into the void. He's obviously turned around programs before, Temple, Baylor, doing some good stuff at Nebraska now, but I'm not sure how much better is he going to be than James Franklin. Can you get a Curt Cignetti? Can you get I've heard Marcus Freeman. I mean, that's what you have to ask yourself. So if you're going to make this decision, I don't hate it, but make sure you got somebody who can get you over that hump that you're trying to get over.
Yeah. Matt Rule is intriguing because of his ties to the university. He played there, met his wife there, the whole bit. So he would be like the university guy coming back in, right? So that would be interesting. Does he want to leave Nebraska? That's a good question. Here is a crazy sentence. We've been doing this a lot this year. Crazy sentences that I'm going to utter in the year of our Lord 2025. Curt Cignetti should not leave Indiana.
No.
I am saying Curt Cignetti should not leave Indiana to take the Penn State job, and that is a wild sentence to say. But it's absolutely true. He's got the pieces he needs at Indiana. He's got the support around him. The university is supporting him. Going to Penn State is not the right move for Curt Cignetti. He's in a good spot. And he's going to have a national title contender probably for the next couple of seasons because that roster is young. That roster is real young. And as long as they don't all go to the draft, Indiana's going to be a player for a while now. Leaving Indiana, a mistake. Marcus Freeman, I don't think that is a legit option.
Yeah.
I think your strongest candidate right now is probably Matt Rule, other than looking at a really good group of 5 coach to potentially take the next step. Because hey, that's what Indiana did, right? And if you want to look at the Indiana model, that's what you got to look at some of your American. Don't call them the AAC anymore, right? The American coaches.
Alex Golish.
Yeah. Looking at Tulane, right? Looking at some of those options might be of interest. Again, the only reason that Rule is interesting is because of his ties to the university, but it's going to be really, really interesting to see how that all plays out. Let me ask you a pivot question here because he is required to look for a job, but I think this is really interesting. Who should hire James Franklin?
Ooh, now we're getting into an interesting question here.
Yeah.
I have heard a few different possibilities being brought up. I think James Franklin could do well maybe at like an ACC. There's a certain job in Blacksburg, Virginia that just came open. I think he could go to Virginia Tech and be the Hokies head coach because we know that he can definitely bring programs like Virginia Tech. He already did it with Vanderbilt in the SEC.
Yep.
Not to say Virginia Tech's a lower end ACC program, but he's proven he can get it done at kind of smaller schools, maybe smaller programs. And Virginia Tech is kind of that same situation where they've had a great history in the past, trying to get back to where they were. In a way, they kind of remind me of Penn State when he first took over them. So I think they would happily take James Franklin, especially considering what they've just went through with Brent Pry in the past few years. I think Blacksburg could be an option. When I think about other programs, you look at, I'm not sure if Arkansas would take him. That's a possibility, but Bobby Petrino's already the interim head coach, and I don't know. That's kind of me just throwing one out there. But hey, if you want somebody who's succeeded in the SEC before, Franklin did it with Vanderbilt. So maybe there's something there. I don't know, but I would say if the most likely possibility to me would be Virginia Tech, but. That's up to James Franklin.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good fit, and I agree with you, the ACC. Here's something wild and crazy. I'll throw 2 wild and crazy things out for you, because neither of them are technically open jobs at this point, but I think they might be. Hey, North Carolina.
That's going to be open soon.
Yeah, and same thing. Exact same reasons that you said he would be a good fit at Blacksburg. If anybody can fix the mess that is North Carolina right now, it's James Franklin, because he's done it. He's done it twice, right? And you need a coach, even if it's not a long-term solution, you need a coach for like 4, 5, 6, 7 years to be able to build that program back after the mess that has just happened over the course of the last 12 months. James Franklin's your guy North Carolina. Think about that. The other interesting thing that just popped up today, literally as I was getting ready to sit down to start talking with you, I saw a notification that there are rumblings that Billy Napier at Florida might be canned by the end of this weekend because the boosters are starting to pull cash out. Florida's real interesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting possibility. Florida's kind of in a weird position because I think they feel like they're on the cusp of getting something going there. Now, I do think that Billy's going to get fired. I do think it's too late for Billy.
Yeah.
Them hiring James Franklin, I could see it happening maybe, but
Yeah.
I do think the Florida fan base is going to expect a home run hire. As you know, I'm in close contact with a lot of Florida fans in my life.
Yes.
Dan
As am I,
Eschenfeld.
because I'm married to one. So,
Oh, there you go. So you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
So I'm thinking about what they would want. I've heard different names, and I don't know if James Franklin. Obviously, he wouldn't have been a possibility until recently.
Right.
I almost think they'd want somebody with Southern ties, like a Lane Kiffin or someone of that nature. I've even heard John Gruden get thrown out. Franklin's an interesting possibility. I would say until further notice on that one, I'd have to first. Billy's got to get fired.
Right.
I do agree with you, though. I think that he's going to get fired after this Mississippi State game because I mean, what are they 2-4 now? I don't think it's going to last much longer.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Also, to find. I mean, this is a separate conversation, but if Napier's gone at Florida, what happens to that roster? Where does DJ Lagway end up? That's going to be really fascinating because he's got. I mean, he's a legit good quarterback, and if he ends up in the right program, we might be talking more about him next year. Or does he stick it out at Florida? We'll have to wait and see what happens there. Good stuff. Let's do some more good stuff. AJ, despite being in another portion of the country with limited Wi-Fi access, he still managed, because he is AJ and he is dedicated to the sport, he still managed to file his report this week, and it is a spectacular one, friends. We have our Group of 5 After Dark report that includes games that are neither Group of 5 nor After Dark, and also the Big 12 buffet, because we have too much other stuff to talk about this week that we let AJ run with the buffet again. So AJ, I'm just going to turn this over to you. AJ, go.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is your Group of 5 After Dark report on a week where, Crappy and I are out. Carla's driving the whole show. She's got guest hosts. I hope you're enjoying them. But we have some other games to go through here. At first, on Friday night, we have San Jose State at Utah State, 9 p.m., CBSSN, the network of, you can say champions right there. Utah State favored by 3.5. The fun index is 65.5. Both of these teams play pretty solid offense. Neither team is terribly good on defense. I think Utah State gets a really pointsy win at home. And that game will be going on and probably getting to about halftime when a true wonder of the world kicks off. At 10:30 p.m. on ESPN, we have UNC at Cal. Bill, I'm really sorry to inform you that Cal Berkeley is favored by 10.5. And the fun index is 47.5. I just really wanted to point out that Bill Belichick is going to be absolutely miserable having to fly across the country to go play at Berkeley. He's not going to get home until like 6 in the morning the next day. And it's one of those times where it's like, oh, you really were not told. You thought the college game was going to be easy. And then no one told you that you might have to go play a Friday night game in Berkeley, even though you're in Chapel Hill. No one told you that part. You thought you were done with this whole cross-country NFL nonsense. Spoiler alert, you're not. Cal rolls easily here, no question in my mind. UNC is a truly not good team, and Cal is pretty good, especially at home. On Saturday, we have UConn at Boston College at noon on the ACC network. Boston College is favored by 2.5. The fun index is 58.5. I found this game really, really interesting because these two teams are not that far away from each other. Storrs, Connecticut to Boston, only a few hours drive. You would think they would play more often, except they're not. They've only played 16 times ever. And their first matchup was in 1908, so it's not like a weird like FCS, FBS thing. No, they played in 1908, and then they took a 72-year break between 1928 and 2000. And UConn only got their first win in the series in 2022. I think they get their second win in the series on Saturday. BC is 1-5. They are not very good. UConn is on the way up, and it's kind of amazing because no one is paying attention to this, but Jim Mora has turned UConn into a moderately consistent team. Honestly, wonders will never cease. And I am kind of impressed by what they've done. I think the Huskies go in to Chestnut Hill and come out with a win. We moved down to 3:30. We got a pretty decent 3:30 and a really big 7 p.m. slate. But at 3:30, we have Wyoming at Air Force, 3:30 p.m. on CBS and the network of champions. Air Force favored by 3.5. The fun index is 58.5. I'm deeply interested in this game because it is a classic stoppable force versus a movable object. Wyoming's defense is good. Their offense is awful. Truly the dregs of FBS. Air Force can't stop a stiff breeze, as mentioned last week, and it continues. Their defense is not good. It's almost like they took that Department of War name change silliness to heart because they just stopped playing defense altogether. I think Air Force just scores more points in this game, and Wyoming just will not be able to keep up. And Air Force flies high and gets the win here. Also at 3:30, a game I'm deeply looking forward to, UNLV at Boise State. This is on FS1. Boise's favored by 10.5. The fun index is 63.5. This has deep shootout potential because UNLV's defense is fine. I'll say fine. They're not very good. They're not bad. They're just fine. They have since, I think, they've smoothed out some of the issues they had against Idaho State to start the year in week 0. But I think they could do a little bit better here. They need to, because Boise State's offense is pretty good, but Boise State's defense is much better. UNLV will be slowed down. UNLV's defense will need to also slow Boise down to try and keep this close. I think Boise gets a win because I think their defense is just better than UNLV's. They'll stop UNLV more than UNLV can score, and that's how football works. This could also be like low key. Keep your eye on it. This is a possible Mountain West Championship preview. Just, keep that one in mind. Boise wins. UTSA at North Texas at 3:30 on ESPN Plus. They buried this on ESPN Plus, and that's a real shame. North Texas favored by 4.5. The fun index is 67.5. North Texas and USF honestly started as a really good game, and then you watched USF just be bigger and stronger and meaner. Quite literally, at one point, the meanness of USF came out when they were. There was a point, it was a fumble return, I believe, and the USF defender just kind of like walked along the goal line and didn't score. He should have got a taunting call for that. They gave him a taunting call post-play, which means the touchdown stood. I personally think it should have been a taunting call and should have been stuck at the 1. But nevertheless, USF just absolutely beat the lights out of North Texas. It wasn't even close at one point. I don't think UTSA is the team to take advantage of the letdown that UNT had. I think North Texas comes out and gets a win here, but UTSA, I think, makes this a little spicier than we're expecting. At 7 p.m. on the Mountain West mobile app, and that is the Mountain West mobile app, not the website. I double-checked. Hawaii at Colorado State. Colorado State's favored by 2.5. Fun index is 54.5, and I will keep saying this until I am proven wrong, but Vegas and analytics doesn't understand Hawaii. They just don't. Colorado State, I've watched a few of their games. They're not good. They're truly just not good. I don't understand how they're favored by 2.5. I guess it's because they're at home. If they were in Hawaii, Hawaii would be favored because this is like a classic 3-point home favorite type of thing. But their defense is not good. Their offense is fine. Hawaii plays much better defense, and their offense is improving distinctly week over week. Micah still plays like a person who's going to give me a heart attack, but still putting up W's. I believe that Hawaii will get bowl eligibility this week. 2 weeks before Halloween, Hawaii will get bowl eligible, and we will be talking about Hawaii bowl game slots. Not just you're going to the Hawaii Bowl because you're there. You're not going to the Hawaii Bowl. You're going to a cool bowl. Give me the Bows to win, and we move on. We also have Georgia State at Georgia Southern, 7 p.m. on ESPN Plus. This is a very fun rivalry. Georgia Southern is favored by 6.5. Fun index is 60.5. A fun rivalry because it's a relatively new one. Like, Georgia State only started their program in 2010, right? So this is a 15-year-old program in total. Ohio State has won multiple national championships since this school became a program. Just throwing that out there. But this is a weird one because it is a battle for the real GSU, Georgia State University, Georgia Southern University. Georgia Southern does not want to acknowledge this. They think they are better than Georgia State. They have a much longer program. Program history. I think truly that Georgia State really does treat this as a rivalry game, and they get up for it. Clay Helton needs this win because he knows that if he loses this game, the boosters are going to be on him. They've won the last two. They finally brought it to somewhat closer to even. Georgia State actually holds the advantage in this rivalry, 6-5. I think Georgia Southern gets the win. This is in Statesboro. It's not like that's really mattered. They're kind of even across the entire series, but I think Georgia Southern gets the win here. And Clay Helton gets to keep his job for another 10 minutes. At 7:30 p.m. on ESPNU, we have Florida Atlantic at USF. USF's favored by 21.5. Now, why, AJ? Why would you be talking about a G5 game where one team is favored by 21.5 points? That seems kind of silly. That's because the fun index is a season high so far, 74.5. No reason. USF's going to win this game handily. USF is a very, very good football team. The only team that they have lost to so far this year is Miami, and Miami's a top 5 team. There was a very clear difference between Miami and USF and all the other teams they played. That includes Florida. I mean, USF's going to win. I just need you to know that if you're watching, I don't know, Tennessee, Alabama, or Penn State, Iowa, and you would like to see some touchdowns happen in a game, you can just turn this on. It's on ESPNU. And finally, for the group of 5-ish, we have FSU at Stanford. This is at 10:30 p.m. on ESPN. FSU is favored by 17.5, and the fun index is 53.5. FSU, are you good? I have a lot of questions about FSU. I think UVA just broke them. They've had three straight losses, and now they're right back down in the mud with everybody else. They were a top 10 team. Everybody was excited. The Florida State had just magically turned everything around. And then they lost to UVA, and then they lost to Miami, and then they lost to Pitt. And they lost to Pitt at home. That one hurt the most, I think. UVA away game, sure. Miami at home, sure. That was a top 25 battle at home, sure. Losing to Pitt at home is not what you want to do, kids. Pitt doesn't win on the road, and they won in Tally. That's kind of crazy. Going to Stanford, this feels like a trap game. I don't know why. It's one of those things where it's like, you're down in the dregs already, and now you have to prepare for a cross-country trip. I don't think it's going to be that bad. I think FSU escapes. I don't think they cover. 17.5 is a big number compared to where they are right now. Yeah, Stanford's not good, admittedly, but I don't think this is the same. I don't think this is the same thing as a down all the way in the dregs Washington State or Oregon State. No slander to my Pac-2 friends, but Stanford's better than that. I think Florida State escapes with a win, but they don't look very good in the process. And finally, we got to open up the Big 12 buffet, mostly because we have some real silly times this week. Arizona at Houston at noon on FS1. That's an 11 a.m. kick. That is a 10 a.m. local time kick for Arizona. Houston's favored by 1.5. This game should be stupid. Houston did not look good against Texas Tech, but honestly, nobody's looked good against Texas Tech. I think this is an opportunity for Houston to really cement themselves at home. I think Willie Fritz wants to get a big win against Arizona. We talked about Arizona potentially taking somebody's legs out last week. They almost did, and then they didn't. They almost took out BYU, and it just did not work out for them in the end. And now they have to have that letdown go into a Houston game at a weird time. I think Houston gets the win there. Baylor at TCU, the Holy War, the newer Holy War. Carla and friends will be talking about the Holy War in a minute here. But Baylor at TCU, that's also at noon on ESPN2. TCU's favored by 2.5. Fun index is 65.5. This game's always stupid. These two teams hate each other all the way back to the fiasco of 2015 where TCU beat Baylor, but then TCU lost to another team. Baylor didn't. And so they kind of had this like weird, like co-Big 12 champion, which then led Ohio State into the national championship picture. And then they won. TCU fans are definitely still not over that, by the way. Hey, Dave, if you're listening. So this game continues to be stupid. It's at TCU. I think I'm going to give it to TCU here. They've looked better overall this season. Baylor has been up and down. I don't know if this is an up week or not. I'm going to take TCU here. We have West Virginia at UCF at 1 p.m. on TNT. Yep, that's a channel that plays football now. UCF's favored by 7.5. The fun index is 46.5. West Virginia's on their like 9th quarterback at this point. I'm not kidding about that. They're missing starting running back, starting wide receivers, part of the O-line. They're down to like their honest to God like 4th or 5th quarterback. They're truly banged up. UCF should have beat Kansas. They didn't, but they should have. I'm going to take UCF here to win. The game I'm actually the most interested in, and that includes Holy War, is at 4 p.m. on Fox. Texas Tech at Arizona State. Texas Tech going on the road. They're favored by 9.5. The fun index is 49.5. I'm interested because I think this is going to be one of those times where people really see Texas Tech absolutely turn the knobs on somebody. They are really, really good. They play at a speed that few teams are playing at right now. They are every bit the number 7 team in the country, if not higher. I think they should be a top 5 team, honestly. They did really well in the transfer portal and NIL, and they put some money into some players, and it has worked out for them significantly this year. They're very much a FSU from a few years ago. When they should have gone to the playoff and didn't. I don't think Texas Tech is going to suffer from that problem because of the 12-team playoff now. I think they are the clear, honest-to-goodness favorite in the Big 12. It's not even close. It's Texas Tech's to lose at this point. I think they go to Arizona State and they make a real statement and take out Arizona State, handily here. And I actually think they cover. And then finally, at 8 p.m., we have Cincinnati at Oklahoma State. Cincinnati's favored by 22.5 in Stillwater. Oklahoma State is down all the way bad. Obviously, Mike Gundy's gone. You have players that have not necessarily they're all kind of like waiting to transfer, I think. And I think this is kind of a dead team until the end of the year. And I don't think they're even going to get the dead cat bounce of an interim coach. But hey, Oklahoma State, you want to do the funniest thing ever and make Scott Satterfield lose? You want to make that UCLA game look extra stupid? I think that could be a really fun thing you could do. You probably won't, but it would be funny if you did. This has been the Group of 5 After Dark report, encouraging you to watch the whole thing. Scoreboard surf, there should be some other fun things on. I want you to look for a game and go, wait, what's happening over there? And I want you to put that one on. And I'm going to send it back to Carla and friends. Thanks.
Thank you, as always, AJ, for all of the good stuff. If you know what you're talking about, you need to go pay attention to the games that AJ is talking about, because let's be real, friends, he has been right more this season than Crappy and I have been, so much, particularly in the Big 12 buffet. This is like a divine week of potential buffeting in the Big 12. We'll see how those games play out. So thank you, as always, AJ. Okay, we have legit games to talk about. Ready to get started?
I'm ready.
Okay, we are going to start on Friday night. These first 2 games, I put these on the schedule because they're just super intriguing. No other reason. So we'll go through these 2 relatively quickly before we get into the 5 ranked on ranked games that we have this weekend. Crappy and AJ, you picked a terrible week to be on fall break. I digress. Friday night, 7 p.m. On ESPN, the worldwide leader. Louisville at number 2 Miami. Miami is favored by 13.5. Oh, I'm getting a U from Dylan. Okay.
Yes.
Miami favored by 13.5 at home. The AJ Fun Index is not bad, 51.5. So I put this game on our schedule for a couple of reasons. First, as we talked before we hit the record button, this game is like crazy every year. Last year it was an absolute points fest. They combined for 97 points last year. But also, like, if you look at Miami's remaining schedule, there's not much. Like Stanford at SMU, Syracuse, NC State, at Vatech, and at Pitt to close out the season. Is this Miami's last real test?
Yeah, with Miami, as a Hurricanes fan, I got to throw up the U, by the way.
There you go. Now you got it on camera.
Yeah,
Good job.
yeah. So this should be, I think, if not the biggest test, I think it's probably the second biggest test they have left. Louisville's a good team. I respect a heck of a lot of what Jeff Brom's been able to do with the Cardinals. They're a good, solid program, and they're always going to give you a hard game. They play disciplined, and they have a great level of execution in how they play. So Louisville's going to be a hard out no matter what year it is.
Yeah.
Last year against Louisville, I suffered probably 3 different heart attacks watching that Miami-Louisville game, just 52-45, and thank goodness for Cam Ward is all I can say. Don't have Cam Ward this year, but what we do have is Hakeem Messidor and Ruben Bain on defense to hopefully limit what Louisville's able to do. Yeah. Beck's looked good so far. Running game's looking great. All signs point to Miami hopefully being able to win this game pretty easily. But if there's one thing I know about Miami, it's that they love to lay eggs in conference play, at least in the past. Because I remember back to 2024, they looked dominant in the out of conference. The minute they hit conference play, it's like every game is a nail biter. They barely beat Virginia Tech on a failed Hail Mary. They had to go to Cal and were down. I think it was 30. It was something to 35-10 or something like that. Barely win that game. And every game was just like that in the ACC. So is that Miami going to return? I don't think so. I think this is a different team. But I will say this, don't be shocked if this one is pretty close going into the fourth quarter. I think that's when Miami kind of puts the hammer down. And I'm going to say Miami wins by 14 points, but it's going to be a bit stressful.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like I'm pretty sold that Miami is the pick here, but if anybody is going to upset the apple cart, it's Louisville. Because they have that knack, right, of just kind of going in and meddling in the ACC.
I'd say Louisville or SMU won.
Right, yeah. I would give some real thought. I would think real hard about actually picking Louisville to win this game if this game were in Louisville.
Yeah.
But it's not. Mm-hmm. It's in Coral Gables. So I'm not going to pick Louisville to win. I'm picking Miami to win. I will pick Louisville to cover. I think Louisville covers. It's a close game. Miami wins a close one at home, and then we'll see what happens when they get in the latter part of their schedule. Moving along to, yes, friends, it's time. We are returning to Big Nude. Washington at Michigan. Michigan favored by 6.5. The AJ Fun Index is 50.5. I put this on the schedule for really one reason here, because it's an intriguing conversation. Washington won its rivalry game. It beat a previously undefeated Maryland team in College Park. Its only loss is to number 1 Ohio State. Before you get into what's going to happen in this game, why isn't Washington ranked?
That is a great question, and I would love the Associated Press to give me an answer on that, because their only loss is to number 1 Ohio State. They're 5-1. I legitimately have no idea, because we had a 2-loss Florida State in the week prior. 2-loss Notre Dame is currently number 13 in the country. Yeah. Yet Washington, who's 5-1, can't seem to get in the poll despite dominating everyone they've played outside of the Buckeyes. So right. I don't know. I don't think the AP, they may just not watch their games, I think is the only way I can describe it, is because they're out on the West Coast. They're like, well, we're not going to stay up to watch Washington. That's the only thing that makes sense to me, because there's no world, in my opinion, where they shouldn't be in the top 25.
East Coast bias.
Yeah, East Coast bias, whatever you want to call it. There's something fishy going on there.
So what's going to happen in Ann Arbor?
I think that this is going to be a big nexus point for Michigan as far as what the rest of their season looks like, because they got blitzed against USC, got pretty well beaten up, sucker punched. The Trojans just kind of owned that game. So Michigan's coming back home. They're going to be in the big house on, as you described it, Big Nude, which at least they're finally giving Gus and Joel maybe hopefully a decent game to call, because they stuck them with Wisconsin, Michigan a couple weeks ago. I couldn't believe that. Like, Fox needs to step up their game. But I digress. Anyway, Washington, Michigan, I think that I would have to take Washington in this one. I like their offense. I like what they've been able to do so far. They've played more consistently than Michigan. Again, I like Michigan, but they're too one-dimensional. They can't really, or they don't really want to throw the ball with Bryce Underwood at the moment.
Right.
And I just don't think that their defense is going to be able to hold up Washington enough to make that happen. Could I be wrong? Sure. But I'm not sure if what they're doing right now is going to be enough to beat the Huskies. So I think Washington wins, and hopefully at 6-1, then they're in the top 25.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I like your take. I don't get the line on this game at all. Mm-hmm. I mean, you get the 3-point bump for playing at home, but 6.5 at home. Hi, friends. Did anybody watch the game last week? Like, did you watch the game in the Coliseum?
They were all asleep.
Yeah. Well, and that's not fair, because that game was not late, friends. That game was in prime time. You have no excuse for not watching that game. Michigan scored once on their first 6 drives of the game. Didn't really get into like any significant scoring until the fourth quarter, and USC would have blown that game wide open if it weren't for 2 red zone takeaways.
Right.
They had 2 red zone turnovers. Defensively, this is not the Michigan that Big Ten is used to. It's not. They're just, we're used to thinking about Michigan in these like vaunted defenses that are just going to blitz the heck out of you. That's not who Michigan is this year. They are middle of the pack in the Big Ten, and they couldn't stop a physical ground game offered by USC last weekend, and not only a physical ground game, a backup physical ground game. Mm-hmm. Because it was a walk-on freshman who took over partway through that game due to an injury. Washington's a good team, friends. They're a good team. They're one of the top offenses in the conference. They're very balanced. Call me crazy. I'm with you. I like the Huskies on the road here. I really, really do. Michigan Stadium is not as daunting at noon as it is at 7 p.m. Right. Yeah, I like the Huskies at noon here. This is going to be an interesting one. Also at noon, over on the American Broadcasting Company, a game that I get to say this. AJ and Crappy know this already because I texted them as soon as I found out. Friends, I am attending this game in person. Number 10, LSU at number 17, Vanderbilt. Friends, I'm going to see Diego Pavia live. I am pumped. Vanderbilt, yes, friends, Vanderbilt favored by 2.5 at home. The AJ Fun Index is at 48.5. My only question here, because I'm just so excited that I'm going to get to finally see Diego Pavia play live. What shade of purple will Brian Kelly's face be at the end of this one?
Ooh, I'm going to say a pretty deep shade of purple. Now, funny enough, I actually went to the Vanderbilt-Utah State game myself a few weeks back, and I got to see Diego Pavia in person, and I got to witness him in person tie a school record for touchdown passes. He went off in that game, and I like what I've seen from Vanderbilt this year. It feels like a lot of people just kind of wrote them off after that loss to Alabama. Let's not forget, they're still only a 1-loss team. They've dominated basically everybody else they played, went into Columbia, destroyed South Carolina, beat Virginia Tech on the road. This is a good Vanderbilt team and a different Vanderbilt team. Yeah, I think LSU is going to be in a tough spot, not only on the road, but trying to contend with that Vandy run defense, which has been pretty solid all season. And what do we know about LSU? They cannot run the football to save their lives.
No, they can't.
They did it a bit against South Carolina, but is that a flash in the pan, or are you going to be able to be consistent with that? I think it's more of a flash in the pan. I think Vandy's offense is going to test LSU's defense in a way that they haven't been tested yet this year. We know Diego's going to put up points. We know he's going to have that veteranocity that's going to help him find the open lanes in the passing game. I like what Vanderbilt's doing this year. I like what Clark Lee's done with the team. I like the moxie they're showing, and I think this is going to be a real watershed moment for them. And funny enough, they're favored, according to all the stuff I've seen, at home, which who would have ever thought that? Vanderbilt favored over LSU. What a world we're living in 2025, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So give me the Commodores. I think Vanderbilt wins a really good game. I think they'll win by about 6 points.
Nice. Diego and the Doors. I tell you, Diego and the Doors, they need to make that a band name. Like that needs to be a thing.
Yes.
I will admit, I'm struggling a little bit with this one because, as you mentioned, Vanderbilt has one of the, again, here's a sentence for you in 2025. Vanderbilt has one of the better offenses in the SEC right now.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Here's the challenge, though, and this is the reason why I'm hesitating just slightly on this, because you know where my heart is. You know my heart is going anchor down. Sorry, Emma. I'm sorry. My heart is anchored down. We have a theory here on this show that if your quarterback is your team's leading rusher, that's not necessarily a good thing.
Right.
Guess who Vanderbilt's leading rusher is right now?
Diego Pavia.
Diego Pavia. That is my hesitation here, is that if Vanderbilt is truly going to be balanced in this game, your leading rusher cannot be Diego Pavia. On the flip side, this is going to be a quarterback duel. I'm very excited to see this game in person because, yes, of course, we've gushed about Diego Pavia for 3 years now. We've gushed about him since he was in New Mexico, right?
Right.
Garrett Nussmeier, like legit slinger. Like he can throw the dang football. But as you mentioned, that's about all LSU does. They're a one-trick pony. If you can slow down Nussmeier, you're going to slow down that offense. They're dead last in the SEC in rushing. A Brian Kelly team, another year of our Lord 2025, a Brian Kelly team is dead last in rushing in the conference. Both these teams are middle of the pack conference-wise defensively. I think this is a tight game. And if you saw my notes, Dylan, I have here, who should I pick? I don't know. To me, this feels like a coin flip game. My heart says Diego. I think Diego wins this game. My challenge is that I'm sitting with LSU fans. That's how I got my ticket. So I will be wearing yellow in the stands to split the difference here. But my heart, I'm going to do it because you did it first. Vandy.
There we go.
Vandy wins at home. This is their year. And let's get them bowl eligible because this puts them into bowl eligibility. Let's get them bowl eligible in week 8.
Love it. I think so. I think it's going to happen. And I'll make sure to wear my Diego Pavia shirt that I bought from the Vanderbilt bookstore day of the game.
Thank you. I wish I could wear something maybe I'll wear, I really wanted to wear black, but then I don't know. We'll figure it out. But it's going to be a fun game. Either way, I'm very excited to see these guys in person. I will have a full report on what I saw at First Bank Stadium next week on the show. Moving on to the 3:30 window. This game's super intriguing. Number 5, Ole Miss at number 9, Georgia. Georgia is favored at home by 7.5. The AJ Fun Index is, a respectable 54.5. This game was already intriguing, and then last weekend happened.
Yeah.
Right? And you end up with an Ole Miss team that has to rally from a third quarter deficit against Wazoo. AJ last week on the show, and you can go back and listen to this. When he talked about Ole Miss Wazoo, he said Wazoo is going to be turned into a fine mist by Ole Miss. That didn't happen. Wazoo gave Ole Miss a legit scare. Georgia, slow start, extremely slow start at Jordan Hare, and then a beneficial fumble call that switches the momentum at in the second quarter. That was totally a touchdown. It was 100% a touchdown. Don't give me that. It was a touchdown.
Oh yeah.
And then they edged it out in the second half over Auburn, causing Kirby to do this wacky celebration dance on the sideline. If you haven't seen that, please go Google it. He takes his shirt off. It's crazy. What is happening? What is happening in this game? What do you make of this one? Because I don't know.
Oh, hang on. Let me do my best Kirby Smart impression here. Yeah. By the way, that was totally a timeout. I don't know who he was trying to fool. Obviously, he fooled the SEC ref, so great job SEC officiating on that one.
They fooled him twice. Yeah.
2 times. But before I go off on a tangent about that, let me talk about the actual game. I do think that Ole Miss, they really were skating on thin ice against Washington State. I think there's no doubt they were looking ahead to Georgia.
Yeah.
It's easy to overlook a team like Washington State, especially when you've already won 3 conference games and you're going to their place next week. You're like, oh, Washington State. Well, they're not going to be anything, and then that's what ends up happening.
And then they played with their food.
Yeah, the 100% they played with their food.
Yeah.
I do think that Ole Miss is going to give Georgia a challenge. This has honestly been the toughest one for me to pick because I've gone back and forth on it.
Same.
Because Georgia doesn't look as good as they have been in past years. I was not impressed at all with what I saw with them against Auburn. They got almost beaten by Tennessee. There is a world where they have 3 losses right now easily. They could have lost to Auburn, already lost to Bama, and probably should have lost to Tennessee if Max Gilbert hadn't done what Max Gilbert did.
Right.
So when I put all that together, I think Ole Miss, in theory, you would think they would have a potential advantage here. But here's the thing. Ole Miss has had their own close calls. I think people forget that they almost lost to Arkansas. That was a close game.
Yep.
And they did beat LSU, but I'm not entirely sold on LSU like I already mentioned. So I think the difference here is going to be Sanford Stadium. I know Georgia's already lost there once this season, but there's no discounting how tough of a place that is to play. I do think that Georgia's going to find a way with Gunnar Stockton. I think the defense steps up a little bit more against Ole Miss, and they give Trinidad Chambliss a bit of a tougher time. Ole Miss is going to be tested in a way that they haven't been yet this season. Give me Georgia to win, I'm going to say by 13 points.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to say a pretty decent margin.
Okay. Here's my word of caution to Georgia in this game. You can't get off to the same slow start this week that you did last week at Auburn.
Yes.
Because you start that slow, Ole Miss isn't going to take its foot off the gas. Because that's what Ole Miss is, right? Ole Miss is score. And if you start slow and you get down 14 points to Ole Miss, this game might be over. Particularly for this Georgia squad that has a fine offense, but they're not the quick scoring attack. We saw that very clearly in Jordan Hare, right? They did come back and win that football game. Their defense shut down Auburn. That momentum swing, you cannot underestimate that momentum swing. It was huge right before the half to be able to carry Georgia through that second half and basically shut Auburn's offense down in the second half and not allowed them to score. That's a much tougher task to do against Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin. Ole Miss's offense is one of the best in the SEC. I think this game's going to be absolutely ridiculous because of the way that both teams are entering in this game.
Right.
I think we're thinking that it's going to be kind of a feel each other out slugfest, maybe a little bit of a defensive battle. This very well could turn into an offensive showdown. Who knows? Who knows entering this one? My gut here. And I like your pick because you're right. Sanford Stadium is a tough place to play, and Georgia has owned home field advantage for the last several years, other than the loss to Alabama. I'm going to be crazy and pick Ole Miss.
Oh, okay.
Just because. This just feels like a game that's going to turn things upside down for a little bit. You're probably right. I think Georgia is a tough out at home. But I don't know. I think Kiffin's crazier and wants to be crazier than Kirby. So if Kirby took his shirt off last week, what's Lane going to do after this game? I'm not sure I want to answer that question. Sure, let's be on opposing sides. I'll take Ole Miss on the road, and we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Crazy game though. Get your eyeballs on this one.
Yeah.
Make sure that this is on one of your screens. In your quad box, keep an eye on this one. It's going to be really, really good. Moving on to the primetime slate, also on ABC. Here's a rule of thumb for the day on Saturday, friends. Just put ABC in your quad box and leave it there all day, because after that game, we get number 11 Tennessee at number 6 Alabama. That game's at 7:30. Bama favored at home by 7.5. The AJ Fun Index is 58.5. That should be a fun one. It's the third weekend in October. How's the rivalry going to play out this year?
Ooh, that's a good question. Now, I got to be careful because I have both Tennessee and Alabama fans in my life that may end up hearing about this.
Right.
I think that this year's edition is going to be a bit of a scoring fest. I think we could be in for a shootout because We know Tennessee's offense has the capability to go out there and do some pretty big damage against some solid defenses. Put up 38 against Georgia, coming off a 34-point performance against Arkansas. Already gotten a shootout with Mississippi State on the road, and it went to overtime. So we know they're going to get theirs. We know Joey Aguilar is going to go out there and score some points. On the flip side, though, Alabama's going to get theirs too, because Ty Simpson has been balling out this year. A lot of people are ordaining him as the Heisman frontrunner right now. We can have that debate another time, but he's looked like a really, really solid quarterback, and maybe at least in that tier. Offense is looking great. Still don't know how they lost to Florida State. Again, that's another discussion for another day. It
was a monsoon.
It was a monsoon, and it's Tallahassee. So, hey, who knows? But regardless of that, I do think we're going to be in for a high-scoring game. I think the issue and the thing that I'm most worried about is Tennessee's secondary, because Bama's defense, to me, is a little bit better talent-wise and overall compared to what Tennessee's had this year. I don't like the matchup of Tennessee's secondary against those Alabama receivers. I think they're going to be able to feast and get open pretty easily. The Alabama running game could be a bit of an issue, especially with Jam Miller currently in concussion protocol, so he may not play. But I think it may not matter. I just think that with Simpson and those receivers, they're going to put up a lot of points against Tennessee, and I just don't know if the Vols are going to be able to keep up. I think it could be a competitive game for 2.5 quarters or so, but I think Alabama's going to pull away towards the end. I'm going to say this one's a multi-possession game. I'm going to take Bama to win by 14 points here.
Okay. I like the pick, and I hate to say that because as somebody who is tired of Bama, and we've talked about this,
I take no pleasure in picking Alabama, but
I
gotta go with what I've seen on the football field.
Exactly, and it's like I'm tired of saying Bama is back, but friends, Bama's back.
They are.
Kalen's figured it out. And they've looked really good the last several weeks. What's interesting about this matchup, though, is that, like, for once, like, these are not the two dominant teams in the SEC entering this game, right? Which is kind of a different position. Both of these teams have won very, very tight football games. Tennessee's already played 2 overtime games this season, and we're only in week 8, right? And Bama's benefited from 2 3-point wins, as you just mentioned. Both of these teams, common opponent, and I love looking at common opponents. Both these teams played Georgia in back-to-back weeks, and they played them pretty evenly. Georgia, Tennessee lost by 3 in overtime in that instant classic, and then Bama won by 3 the following week. So that's not even a great measuring stick for this one. Ty Simpson's been accurate. He's not turning the ball over. And I agree with your assessment that I'm not sure the Tennessee secondary is ready for that Bama passing attack. My one hesitation is that Tennessee has a legit ground game behind Deshaun Bishop. Bama's not great at stopping the run.
That is true.
So if the Vols can get that ground game cranking, this game gets real interesting real fast. But it's Bryant Denny.
Yeah, you got to add that in.
At night. And put this game in Neyland, and I'm having the same conversations we had about Louisville, Miami.
Right.
The Bryant Denny factor like solidifies it for me. I think the Bama passing attack, Bryant Denny, Bama wins. I don't know if I have them winning as comfortably as you do, but I think Bama wins this football game at home. And gosh, can I wash my mouth out with soap?
I want to. And the Vols haven't won there since 2003. So historically, they don't have that on their side either. So I think when you put all that together, I think Tennessee might be in trouble here.
Sorry, friends. Okay, let's move on to let's cleanse the palate. No, I was gonna say let's cleanse the palate, but we're gonna talk about Notre Dame. Number 20, USC at number 13, Notre Dame. That game takes the 7:30 window on NBC. Notre Dame favored at home by 9.5.
Yeah.
But legit, the AJ Fun Index, 61.5. Check. Conveniently enough, USC gets ranked again right before they have to go play Notre Dame. Funny how that works. Notre Dame actually has to, need some ranked competition. Go figure. What do you see happening in South Bend?
Well, as a Miami fan, I want Notre Dame to do well personally, just because it helps their resume.
Right.
And I will say this: Notre Dame has looked better in recent weeks. The defense has been playing a lot better than they were at the start of the year, because
Agreed.
I watched them after that Texas A&M and specifically the Purdue game, and I'm like, what in the world's wrong with their defense? They've definitely been improving. However, as always, context matters here. We have to look at the level of competition they've been facing. It's been NC State, Boise State. There's one more in between that as well. I can't think of who it is right now, but Arkansas. Arkansas was the other one. The Arkansas thing may have been actually kind of impressive because Taylor Green and that offense have done some good stuff this year. But I do think when you look at that and have that context added in, yes, the defense has been improving, but is it truly back to where it was a year ago? I'm not sure. And one thing we know about USC is they are really good at the whole offense thing. Jaden Mayava is going to be out there balling. Malachi Lemon, I couldn't think of his name for a second. He's going to go out there and probably get his as well. So I think USC's offense is going to have a good one in this one. But I do think that USC's defense, especially when it comes to passing, could have trouble with CJ Carr, because CJ Carr has been improving this season. He's been getting better and better with each passing game. He's going to have his success, and that's not even mentioning the running game. We saw how Illinois bullied USC with the run game and really kind of just owned them on their home field. And we know that Notre Dame's got Jeremiah Love. They've got Price as well. I think all the offensive weapons for Notre Dame, and improved defense, and the games in South Bend, that is 3 check marks for Notre Dame. And there's a couple of things already against USC that I have to add in as well. It pains me to say it, but I do think Notre Dame is probably going to take this one.
I'm torn on this one too. I like your assessment there. And South Bend at night is a tough place to play, and USC is flying across the country to go play this football game, and that is a factor here. We are seeing that become a factor in all of these all coast conference games, right? Where you're flying long distances and it's impacting outcomes. It feels really counterintuitive to say this based on that legit fun index. This could be a battle of ground games.
Yeah.
Here. Now, yes, USC lost their leading rusher, Wayman Jordan, last week against Michigan. He's going to be out for several weeks. In steps King Miller, a kid nobody has heard of, a walk-on freshman, racks up 158 yards and 1 touchdown against Michigan, friends. It's not against some group of 5 team. No, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Can Miller keep up that momentum? I mean, was it just kind of the adrenaline of, oh my gosh, I'm in the game? That's going to be a really fascinating storyline to watch on the USC sideline as to whether or not they can keep that ground attack going. Obviously, they've got the offensive line to do it. You mentioned Jeremiah Love. Jeremiah Love is an interesting case study this year, because all season long we have touted him as being arguably should be one of the best running backs in all of college football right now. He has the talent. He's 26th in the country right now in total yards, and that doesn't make sense. When you have a back that is that good, is it a blocking problem? Now, obviously, the Irish, as you mentioned, turned things around. They're playing some okay competition, but they've put together some really big wins. Is this the game that Jeremiah Love finally gets going? So do we see this ground attack? We're talking about 2 quarterbacks that can throw the football, but is this becoming a run game? Maybe. Jordan Mayava can flat out sling it. We know this. Irish secondary is not great, though.
It is not. No.
And you could make the argument here that Notre Dame, they ain't played nobody, Paul, since they went 0-2.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could argue that Miami and A&M are, they're both top 4 teams right now, and they hung close with them. So that may be an argument, but they haven't won against anybody who's really good.
Notre Dame needs this game.
Yes.
Notre Dame needs this game because the rest of their schedule is... They need this game if they want to have a shot of being in the conversation to make the playoff, because this might be their last great chance to make an impression on primetime national television.
Don't sleep on Navy. The midshipmen are undefeated right now.
That is true. That is true. And gosh, wouldn't that be fun? As a Navy brat, I would love that so much. Yes. You better believe I'm pulling for the middies in that game. But as much as we like to bash Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman is one of the best coaches in all of college football right now. He's doing a heck of a job in South Bend. My notes had me picking USC, but I think you're causing me to change my mind here. I think I'm changing my mind live on the air. I'm
Man.
going to take the Irish at home in South Bend. That's a tough ask for USC after winning the emotional game in the Coliseum, then flying across the country with a backup running back.
Hmm.
Irish squeaked this one out in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think
And
it's going to be close. I'm going to say one possession like you. I think Notre Dame wins on a field goal.
yeah,
I don't know if it'll be a walk-off field goal, but it'll be by a field goal.
yeah, I think this game's going to be close, but I'll change my pick live and go Irish at home. Finally, I am so glad that this game is in primetime. This game, I'm so excited for this game. If you've been waiting for Big 12 mention here, friends, we get it, and we get it in like the most utmost fashion. It's the Holy War. Number 23 Utah at number 15 BYU. This game is at 8 Eastern on Fox. You don't even have to pass a Hawaii test. Utah favored on the road by 3.5. The AJ Fun Index is an appropriate 59.5. It's the Holy War. It's a conference game. It's the Big 12 buffet, and it kicks off in primetime. This is like the piece de resistance to end the night. What do you see on this one?
Oh, I'm excited for this game. This may be the one that I'm most excited on a personal level to see, just because the Holy War is maybe the most underrated rivalry in all of college football.
Agreed.
And the game's almost always awesome. So I'm pumped for this one. This is going to be fun because BYU, I'm waiting to see, are they legit? They're 6-0, so they're obviously good to some degree. But again, level of competition, it's not been the best in the world. We've seen what Utah, in a way, has been capable of. They've been undefeated outside of that loss to Texas Tech. Now, they got destroyed by Texas Tech and by the Red Raiders' backup quarterback in the second half of that game. But I trust Kyle Whittingham, and I trust that team. And I've seen what Devin Dampier has been able to do as the quarterback this year. He's completely turned around that Utah offense. Utah, to me, is going to be in contention at the end of the year for that Big 12 championship game. I could very well see a rematch with Texas Tech in the cards in Dallas. I think it's in Dallas this year, right? The Big 12 title game?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I think Utah will be there at the end of the year. In order to do that, they got to beat BYU. And I think they're going to. I think Utah's going to go in, and I think the game's at BYU this year, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
So I do think that's going to be tough going into Provo and getting that win. But I like what Utah's been able to do. BYU's been cutting it close. Had to go to overtime against Arizona last week. And although they've got a solid offense, I don't know if they're going to be able to keep up with what Dampier and the Utah offense will be able to do. But I do think it's going to be one of those wild, crazy games where all kinds of dramatics happen. Could see some sort of walk-off field goal, walk-off touchdown. Who knows? Maybe it goes to overtime. Tough to say. Whatever the case is, I think it could end up being the game of the day. I do think Utah is going to win, though. Give me the Utes. Yeah,
caffeinate, friends, because you got to stay up through the rest of this game. Even though it's the primetime game, it is in Utah. It starts a little bit later. Take that afternoon caffeine.
Mountain times.
Yeah, no, we've long since established now that the Big 12 is buffeting itself again this year. BYU needed double overtime to get past Arizona, which we told you that was going to be a thing. Teams go to Arizona to die. That's what happens. Ask the Pac-12. That's a thing. Anytime you have to go on the road to Arizona, doesn't matter which one, bad things are going to happen, and bad things almost happened to BYU. They had to pull that game out. What we weren't expecting last week, though, was Utah just absolutely steamrolling Arizona State.
Right.
That game wasn't close. Mm-hmm. And we thought that both of those games were going to be close. Not so much. Utah is turning into a very impressive team. That was a statement win. And let's be very real here. Utah remembers 22-21.
Mm-hmm.
That was the score last year, a BYU win in Salt Lake. This game's going to be a rock fight. An absolute rock fight. They're the top two rushing teams in the Big 12. I like your pick. I think the Utes are rising. I take the Utes on the road in Provo to even out last year's loss at home to the Cougars. Boys and girls, you can hear the Carla and Crappy Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and a variety of other podcasting hosts. You can watch us on our YouTube or on the show's Facebook page. You can also read us on our Substack. If you like us, please subscribe, rate, and review. If you don't, mind your own damn business, and come back next week to see just how wrong I was. Dylan, you won't be here to defend yourself, but we'll keep tabs of how you were doing, and hopefully maybe we'll get a full team back on the show next week. That would be nice. AJ and Crappy, I miss you. Dylan, any final thoughts before we sign things off for the day?
Yeah, well, first off, it's been great to be on the show today. I appreciate you having me on, and it's been awesome to talk college football. Always great occasion to do that. One more game I'd say to keep an eye on this week, though. Georgia Tech Duke going to be an ACC sleeper. Both teams undefeated in conference play. That's one that not a lot of people are talking about, but don't be surprised if the Yellow Jackets get upset by the Blue Devils, like what Manny Diaz is doing with Duke this year.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that is a sleeper game. We probably should have put that on our radars, but yeah, that's a good pick. I'll run through the usual slate of Crappy's games and my games that we normally go through. Our mutual interest here, MTSU off this week. They play next week. That game is at Delaware. That game is on Wednesday, I think.
It is on a Wednesday, yes.
Okay, so prepare now, mark your calendars. That is in week 9, Wednesday night, that game at Delaware. I believe that game is on ESPN 2. Anyhow, just make sure that you keep an eye on that one. Yes, Cuse action is in the middle of the week, friends. I'm watching a game right now. Delaware's trying to make it interesting, but it is 38-25 with about 3 minutes to play in the game. Jacksonville State has the lead at home. So by the time you listen to this, that game will be over. My alma mater, AJ's alma mater, Robert Morris. Friends, you lost your homecoming game. It's not a good year for me to be a fan of college football. Robert Morris is now 1-5. They're on the road at Long Island. That game is at noon Eastern. You can catch that on. It is not on ESPN Plus this week because Long Island does not have broadcast facilities. So that game is on NEC Front Row. If you want to watch that, check out the NEC website. How about some Division III action? In honor of Crappy, Crappy's employer, number 17 Carnegie Mellon. A heartbreaker. Dropped a heartbreaker last week at number 3 Johns Hopkins, 28-27. The Tartans led that game 24-7 at the half. They gave up 21 second half points, but yet welcome to Division III football, friends. Despite the loss, the Tartans actually rose in the D3 polls. They are now number 16. They will host Gettysburg in Oakland. That game is at 1 Eastern. You can catch that on the CMU Athletics website. We'll see if they can bounce back. Your playoff-bound Ohio Bobcats. Yes, we are still trying to speak that into existence, friends. They are at home against Northern Illinois. That game is at 3:30 Eastern on ESPN+. And, of course, have to mention it, number 1 Ohio State on the road against their former assistant coach, Luke Fickell, and Wisconsin. That game is at 3:30 on CBS. Just for you, Crappy. That game's going to be ugly. That game's going to be real ugly. Wisconsin is fully broken. Will Luke Fickell survive the week? That's something else to keep an eye on. We'll see what's happening there. And then, of course, to wrap things up, Penn State at Iowa at Kinnick. Yes, friends, if you thought it couldn't get any worse, here's a night game at Kinnick for you. 7 p.m. Eastern, and even more frustrating, this game's on Peacock, friends. Go dig out your password because this is not on NBC proper. Notre Dame took that slot. So, yes, you need your Peacock password to be able to watch this game. We'll see what Terry Smith and this new this new season of Penn State football looks like. I'm hoping that they make it respectable. My new goal for the season for Penn State, because we're trying to speak things into existence here. I originally, obviously had high hopes for the season for my Nittany Lions. Here's my new hope. I want 6-6. I want a bowl. I want to make a bowl game, and here's why. Because what's likely going to happen to a 6-6 Penn State team? Where are they most likely to end up in the bowls? The Music City Bowl, friends. I want a 6-6 Penn State in the Music City Bowl. So even though I can't go see them in Indianapolis because that's not going to happen, maybe I can see them just down the street at Nissan Stadium. We'll see. We'll keep our fingers crossed. Dylan, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. I'm so glad that we were able to do this. You want to do a quick plug for Blue Raider Extra Point? Where can people watch that?
Yeah, 100%. Next episode of Blue Hitter Extra Point will be November the 8th when MTSU takes on FIU. Make sure to check that out. If you want to watch Blue Hitter Extra Point and MTN Sports properties, check out the MTN Sports YouTube channel. Just search up MTN Sports in your YouTube search bar. Should be able to find it. And look for Blue Hitter Extra Point live from the Grove. We've got 2 more editions this year, and Ethan, Brett, and Devin have some special stuff for you. So make sure to check that out coming up in the next month.
Awesome. And you might you might know the celebrity guest picker on November 8th. I'm just saying. Okay. We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. Dylan, thank you so much again. Thank you for being here, for all that you do for the show, for watching, for listening, for sharing, doing all of the things. We hope everybody is back again next week. Enjoy the college football this weekend, friends. Cheers. We'll see you next week.